doubled our thumbs up for that. Hi, my name is Wayne Gerdes, and as a nice introduction, thank you, Terry. I hold multiple world records in fuel economy, but more importantly, I train others to drive far more fuel efficiently no matter what they own and drive. You can own a hybrid, you can own a diesel, you can own a regular car. It doesn't matter what you own. It's driving anything can be done more fuel efficiently with some of the techniques that we're going to show you today. And with that, sorry I was a little bit late. It was terrible conditions out there. I come from the Wisconsin border in Lake Michigan, a little town called Wadsworth. And I'm glad that you could all make it out here on such a terrible weather evening. With that, let's get started. I'm just going to scroll through these and I'll be walking back and forth. Are you concerned about the local environment? Everybody's seen LA on a smog-filled day, but can you believe that Dallas also has a similar situation? Chicago does, New York, the Carolinas, Washington, D.C., Miami, they all have a similar situation. Are you concerned with peak oil? What peak oil is when a country or the world can't produce any more oil than we're currently consuming. That blue line is the United States production from 1920 all the way till almost 05. And as you can see, we peaked in 1970. Even with Gulf of Mexico and with Alaska, we're heading in a wrong direction. So we're importing more and more of our daily needs. Are you concerned about our national security? Currently, we import about 70% of our daily needs from not just Canada, not just Venezuela, not just Mexico, but also the Middle East. It doesn't matter if you get your oil from Canada or Nigeria, you still get it from the Middle East. And unfortunately, those petrodollars are being recycled into areas that are not good for our country. And as you know, 9/11, some of that had to do with us protecting that oil supply and giving money to people that really don't like us that much. Are you concerned about the future of our planet? There's a global warming concern. Anytime you burn a gallon of gas, there's 19.6 pounds of CO2 created. There is actually about 28 when you look at it from pumping it out of the ground into your car and then out the tailpipe. That's a lot of CO2, and as you guys know about Al Gore and his inconvenient truth, we all have a stake in this, and by increasing your fuel economy, you will reduce your CO2 output. And everybody knows what this was all about just 6-8 months ago. And we can do something about this with the instant we turn the key or even not turning the key. With that, we'll move on to what describes what it's all about. If all those conditions we just went through make sense to you, maybe you should become a hypermiler as well. Anybody can do this. It's really easy to do. What I posted here, this is a Monroney sticker from a 2004 Toyota Prius. It's showing 60 city, 51 highway. All brand new cars have these. And back in 07, this was the case. In 08, they changed the test cycles. What that is we're going to go into that a little bit, but it took the Toyota Prius from a 55 combined rating down to a 46. And we're going to describe that first so you understand what the fuel economy rating on your automobile is all about in the first place. What is an EPA fuel economy rating? It doesn't mean a guy gets in your car and then he drives it around a certain loop and he says that's your fuel economy. What it's done is a vehicle's placed on a dynamometer and they measure the CO2 output of that vehicle, and then they take that analysis and that amount of CO2 and they convert it to how many gallons of gas that vehicle consumed over a particular test cycle. This one you can see a Mazda Miata in the New York facility of the EPA. The EPA only tests about 15% of all vehicles. The manufacturers are the ones that place the sticker on your car. So when you go to, let's say, a Toyota Prius and it says 46 miles per gallon, Toyota's the one that tested that to 46 miles per gallon. The EPA only certifies about 15% of the vehicles just to make sure the manufacturers aren't cheating. This is the EPA city test. This test was created back in the late 60s. What it was a typical test drive around Los Angeles, and they mimicked this test on the dynamometer. What I want you to know though, top speed of 56 miles an hour, average of 20 miles per hour. This is relatively slow. The main thing is 68 to 86 degrees. This is optimal temperatures for vehicles to get the best fuel economy. They don't consider that it's 20 degrees and snowing and we're driving through slush and all the terrible conditions we have. But this was one of a test that was designed back in the late 60s, and they use it even today as part of our fuel economy test cycle. This is the EPA highway test. What this describes is a typical drive down the highway, one slowdown, and then a stop at the end. What I want you to notice is that top speed is 60 miles per hour. I can bet that everybody in this room has been over 60 miles per hour within the last 2 days, probably in the last hour. But that kind of gives you a description. Perfect temperature, 68 to 86 degrees, no AC at all, and it's just a nice easy cruise, average 48 miles an hour. This is not really all that realistic, and up through 1985, that city and that highway test was used to describe your vehicle. And for example, and I want to use the Toyota Prius here because we're going to talk about that at the end of the program. The Toyota Prius on these two tests combined gets 68 miles per gallon. I know one individual in the world that has a 68 mile per gallon lifetime average in a Toyota Prius, and yet there's over 1 million Priuses out there. So that gives you an example of how easy these tests were. Now, 2008 changed things a little bit. The EPA said, boy, we've got these numbers and they can't even reach them. 1985, they changed them as well. From 1985, they added a 10% offset to the city and a 22% offset to the highway to try to make them more realistic. And that's where the Prius went to 55 miles per gallon instead of today's 46. Well, 2008 changed that. As you can see now, they use the same 68 to 86 degrees, AC's off, top speed of 80 miles per hour. Now around here in Illinois we wouldn't travel that fast, but they're trying to make a simulated drive on the highway for what somebody in Texas would do, somebody in Florida would do, somebody in New York. It's just a broad-based average, and now you can see this is a little bit more realistic. You got some stops and crawls over at the end, higher speeds, and again, it's just to try to mimic what you do when you drive on the highway. Okay, we've got the highway test, the city test again. Oops, I'm going backwards here. Cold test. This one wasn't in the 2007, 1985, 1973. None of these tests existed. They added a cold test because as we all live up in the north, we know what it's like to be driving at 20 degrees Fahrenheit and snow and slush and everything. What they do is they put this vehicle into a box for 24 hours at 20 degrees, and once it's totally cold soaked, they start it up, throw the heater on, and then run through this test cycle. Various speeds. Again, it's a slower speed city test, but it's done in 20 degree temperatures, and it's not uncommon to see this test drop fuel economy by over 50% just because of the cold temperatures versus the warm temp. This was added in 2008. And again, I just wanted to speak about this offset. In 1985, they added an offset to try to make the test more realistic. A Prius, if it was tested in 1984, would have got 68 miles per gallon. If it was tested on the 2007 test, it would have got 55 miles per gallon. Even that's kind of easy to get. My Accord was rated at 29. Most people are getting 24 in it. In 2008, they added a high speed, an AC test, and a hot temperature test. That hot temperature test, what it did is they put the vehicle into a box, raised it to 90 degrees plus for 24 hours, and then they drove it on a nice highway test cycle, and they ran AC full blast. And anybody that runs AC, you can usually see a 20 to 30% drop in fuel economy. So all they did was, with all these new tests in 2008, try to come up with a more realistic approach to what that sticker on the side of your car matches to what we are driving today. And again, the Prius goes to 46, and when you look at EPA.gov, fueleconomy.gov, it's an EPA site, of all the Prius drivers, they're getting around 45. So it is more realistic. On my site, cleanmpg.com, we're seeing about 57 to 58 mile per gallon averages for all the Prius drivers. And again, that's matching the old test. What we're going to try to do is make sure that you guys, no matter what you own and drive, break that EPA, get above it, and we're going to see if you can not only put some money in your pocket, but maybe do some for our environment, for our geopolitical situation, and you know, it's always a good thing to save a little bit of gas. Okay, you know how the fuel economy tests were completed. What makes a hypermiler? If you can beat that average fuel economy rating on your vehicle, you're a hypermiler. Guaranteed, it's that simple. If you don't have to turn the key, if you can walk or bike, you're the best hypermiler there is. There simply is no better. Public transportation, by all means take that, because that one is going to, again, save fuel for future generations until we can transfer to an all-electrified transportation system. Basic vehicle setup. This is so easy, and you don't have to do anything but go to the gas station with an air gauge, press up your tires to max sidewall. You're going to find some good things. One is it can decrease your fuel cost by 10% by increasing your fuel economy by 10%. Max sidewall, it's listed on every single tire sold in America. It's on every single car in the parking lot right now. You'll see it. It'll give you better traction in the summertime. It'll give you better handling, better performance. Negatives, in snow conditions like we're in today, you'll get a slightly longer braking distance. In a dry condition, you'll get shorter braking distances. It's always a good thing to do. Use the lightest weight synthetic oil. What I did is I brought a Mobil 1 0W20. This stuff's hard to find for some reason, but for Fords and Hondas, all of them, you can use 0W20. And it has a lower kinematic viscosity than the standard we call dyno oil. And the reason why I recommend synthetic is twofold. One is it has lower kinematic viscosity for the same weight versus dyno oil. And two, you can go to extended oil change intervals with it. And when you go to extended oil change intervals, it saves you a little money, but more importantly, out of all the oil that comes out of our vehicles at 7,500 mile oil changes or 3,000 mile oil changes, whatever it is, some of that oil doesn't make it to a recycler. Unfortunately, there is some of it that makes it into our streams and tributaries, lakes and oceans. And that's not a good thing. So if you can double that interval change, that's 50% less chance of that oil getting into a place where it shouldn't be. So there's twofold. One, better fuel economy by 2 to 3%, and two, less chance of it getting into a place it shouldn't go into.
Is synthetic recycled?
Yes, synthetic is just, what they do is they maintain the carbon chain links to be the same length throughout the whole strand of that particular oil molecule. Whereas dyno oil has changed different all over the place, and when it breaks down, which it will because it is broken up like that, it's beyond this course, but when that happens is that oil, not only does it break down, it also becomes stickier, and it will help create sludge, whereas synthetic won't. So you can recycle synthetic oil. Remove the junk in the trunk, and I have a story about this. My son's girlfriend came over one day, and she had a 1985 Grand Prix. And she says, I'm really getting bad fuel economy. I think this thing's rated like 20 or something. And it was, I think it was 22 miles per gallon. And she was getting like 15 miles per gallon. I says, well, let's take a look. So I do a walk around in the vehicle. Her tires are all low, 15 pounds, half of what's max sidewall, half of what the door placard was. But more importantly, when I opened up the trunk, the entire trunk was filled with books. I couldn't believe it, but there was at least 500 to 600 pounds of books in her trunk, and I said, what's this all about? She says, well, when I graduated college, I didn't know what to do with books. I says, so you're carrying them back and forth to work? So that was one of the first things we did, was we took all the books out. She's now getting better than EPA, but she also bought a Toyota Yaris, so that's a good thing. But it's just one of those things. You remove junk from the trunk, it'll give you a little 2 to 3% boost, and I also want to add another little piece to this. Ford Escape Hybrid, I don't know if anybody's familiar with that particular vehicle, but they have done testing with that vehicle loaded with an extra 100 pounds. It lost 1 mile per gallon. With 200 pounds, it lost 1 3/4 mile per gallon. This is an Escape Hybrid. It's pretty big size, SUV, and it's capable of carrying. But as you can tell, every 100 pounds, you lose a little bit. Keep adding, you lose a little bit more. Now, adding a fuel consumption display. I'm fortunate in most of my vehicles either have them, or if they don't, I install one. Fuel consumption displays are a simple device. It's about that big. It's called a scan gauge. I wish I had one here, but I have it in my other car. What this device does is it gives you feedback saying, if I step on the gas from here to that stoplight up ahead, I'm getting 6 miles per gallon in my F-150, or 10 miles per gallon in my Honda Accord or Grand Prix. By not stepping into it that hard, but just backing off a little bit, and accelerating normally and then letting off early, you might be getting 15 miles per gallon while you're accelerating and then infinite while you're coasting down to the stop ahead. And you can see this in real time. It allows real-time feedback, and you can adjust your driving habits to these gauges to improve your fuel economy immensely. Okay? Basic setup of your vehicle. These are prices I pulled from today. The national average in the United States right now is running about $1.94. And here in our area, it's about $1.99. So just with basic setup, including that fuel consumption display, you can take your gas price from $1.99 down to $1.55. You'll still be paying $1.99 at the pump, but you're going to get 20 to 25% further on the same fuel that you would have consumed earlier. So it's like paying $1.55, and wouldn't we all like to do that today? Now, when you go up to $4, it's like paying $3 a gallon. This is without changing any habits at all. This is just setting up your vehicle, removing the junk in the trunk, put a fuel consumption display, and you'll be surprised at what happens. I'm going to bring up these basic hypermiling techniques, and some people call this eco driving, and the reason I don't like the term eco driving is because there's no accountability. When you hear the term eco driving, it was a term created in Europe. That term says by gently accelerating, gently slowing down, by removing the stuff in the trunk, and all of these basic, easy functions, easy things to do, you're going to get better fuel economy. How much? I don't know. Eco driving just says do this stuff, it's going to help you. Well, hypermiling takes it a next step. We're accountable for every time we turn the key. And by using the basics, intermediates, and advanced techniques you're going to see in a few minutes, you're going to find out how easy this really is and the fuel savings that you'll do for all the reasons we talked about right in the beginning of the program. Do not use quick accelerations or brake. Everybody knows that. Do not idle. I want to talk about this do not idle issue. In Japan, in Kawasaki, Japan, they actually have people sitting on the corners near stop signs and stoplights that will shame you into turning your car off if you're sitting there idling away. This is becoming a standard throughout Europe now. There is actually areas where there's anti-idling laws. New York has certain anti-idling laws for certain locations. Canada does. It's only a matter of time before either our vehicles go hybrid where they won't idle unnecessary, or we're going to have to be shutting our vehicles off. This saves a lot of fuel. Do not drive at higher speeds. Fortunately or not, here in northern Illinois, our speed limits on the interstate are 55 miles an hour. Unfortunately, about 60 to 80% of the drivers are driving over that limit, and I can't stop them, and although I wish I could, what I do is I stay in the right-hand lane, and I drive 50 to 55 on the interstates, and that's where I stay. Do the same, and you're going to see some big numbers later on as to why we should do that. Cold weather and frequent short trips. This one is a real fuel economy killer, and the reason why is because when your car's not warmed up, it is getting terrible fuel economy. It is not uncommon to see somebody start up a Ford F-150, drive for 3 miles and get 6 to 8 miles per gallon because it's not warmed up. It's an open loop situation where it just doesn't know what to do except to pour gas to go and pour gas even when you're slowing down. Because it's not warmed up, this is going to happen. So what you want to do is, let's say you had 4 trips. You're going to the Blockbuster that's a mile away. You're going to go to the Jewel store that's 2 miles away. You're going to go to the post office that's 10 miles away. And then you're going to loop back and go to the hardware store that's 3 miles away. What you want to do is take the longest trip first. Go to the 10-mile further distance out location first. That warms up your car, and then for each successive drive coming home, your car's warmed up and it's getting best fuel economy. So take the long trip first. Remove cargo or cargo racks, and this is more has to do with the highway. Aerodynamic drag can affect fuel economy pretty dramatically. By removing just simple cargo racks, you can gain a half mile per gallon or more, depending on the speeds you travel. But in many cases, you're going to see SUVs out there. The racks, it's just 2 clips usually to pop them off, throw them in the trunk, put them in the garage, whatever. In most cases, there's nothing on the top of those racks anyways. So remove them, get them out of there. There's no point in throwing away fuel just so you have these racks on your roof if you own an SUV with them. Do not tow unless absolutely necessary. And again, a lot of vehicles today, you can put stuff in the vehicles without having to either tow it or even carry it on. For example, I know a lot of people that drive SUVs, they have hitches. There are hitch mount carriers that you can use, and you can carry quite a bit. Instead of carrying a trailer of stuff, you can use a hitch mount carrier and place it all enclosed into coolers and stuff, whatever you need to. Again, you're saving a tremendous amount of fuel versus towing just by installing or buying one of these little hitch carriers. Less than $150 versus a whole trailer could be thousands, and you're going to save a lot of fuel. Minimize running mechanical and electrical accessories. The reason why I mention this is because air conditioning, we talked a little bit about it, it can reduce your fuel economy, especially around town, by up to 30%. If you don't need to use air conditioning, you know, a lot of times what I'll see around here is it'll be 72 degrees, beautiful day, and you'll see somebody's windows rolled all the way up and you know what's going on. Their AC is just running away and they're happy, but they really don't need to run it. And they're giving up 30% of their fuel economy just because it says 72 degrees on the button when actually it's 72 degrees outside, and they could just roll their windows down and enjoy the day. Avoid driving on hilly and mountainous terrain. Now, fortunately, in Illinois, we don't have to worry about that too much. But there's always, even in Wadsworth, Illinois, which is probably the flattest area around, there's always hills and little valleys and stuff. If you can avoid them, by all means do. We can take advantage of them with some advanced techniques you're going to see later. But for the intents of this course, what we want to see is just try to avoid anything that you have a long hill going up where there's a stop sign on the bottom. If you have to accelerate from zero, climbing a hill, it's the worst thing you can do. Go find another route, an alternate route, whatever you can do to go around that and get away from it. And then for those people that have four-wheel drive capability that can switch it off, by all means do. And the reason why I say that, and this has to do with your next vehicle purchase as well, everybody might think, well, it's sure nice to have a four-wheel drive vehicle to get back and forth to work in the snow. How did the guy in the Geo Metro get back and forth to work when I needed a four-wheel drive? It's because he drove cautiously and he made it to work. And in fact, because he didn't have four-wheel drive, he was probably driving more defensively. And whenever you travel across the country through a snowstorm area, you're going to find the vehicles that are in the ditch are four-wheel drives and pickup trucks by about 3-to-1 margin because they're overconfident with four-wheel drive. All it does is help you go. It doesn't help you stop or turn. Now, we talked a little bit about speed. And I want to use the case of some super fuel economy vehicles. That means hybrids. With that, we have a Toyota Prius here. I didn't put 30 and 40 mile per hour on a Toyota Prius because it moves in and out of what we call electrical mode. But what I did is at 50 miles per hour, a Toyota Prius gets 68 miles per gallon. It's rated at 46, and the countrywide average is about 45. Yet at 50 miles an hour, it gets 68 miles per gallon. Here in northern Illinois, 50 miles per gallon is totally legal until you get way south of Chicago. Even at 60 miles an hour, it's still worth 61 miles per gallon. That's a pretty big amount for a vehicle that's only rated at 46 miles per gallon. Honda Civic Hybrid, again, another fuel miser. It's only rated at 42 miles per gallon per the EPA. At 30 miles an hour, it's getting 85 miles per gallon. 40 miles per hour, 90 miles per gallon in a Honda Civic Hybrid. Again, it's only rated at 42 miles per gallon, yet those are the results. I was fortunate enough to take a Honda Civic Hybrid around the country on I had to hit LA for the LA Auto Show, and we also had a review vehicle I had to do. But since I was out there, I said, well, Honda asked me to do a 48 state world record in one. Again, a 42 mile per gallon vehicle. We did this just 2 months ago in the middle of winter, at the worst time we could probably do it. I said, well, your numbers are going to be off by 5 or 10 miles per gallon. He said, that's okay, just go ahead. That vehicle returned with 3 of us in it, all of our gear, all of our luggage, 7,500 miles, 68.5 miles per gallon for a new world record. This is very easy to do. And again, a 42 mile per gallon vehicle in the middle of winter with 3 people in it, all their gear, 68.5 miles per gallon. Anybody can do this. This is the one I really want to show though, a Ford Escape Hybrid. This vehicle is rated at 32 miles per gallon on the 08 EPA, that's an 09. This one was tested with a 07. At 30 miles an hour, it was getting 60 miles per gallon. Again, this vehicle is rated at 30 and it's getting 60. 40 miles per hour, still 56 miles per gallon. And even at 60, 42 miles per gallon from a vehicle, this is an SUV capable of carrying 5 and just about anything and anybody would possibly want to carry. It can even tow, it can go off-road, but more importantly, just by driving it in a manner that is conducive to fuel economy, this is basically setting cruise control. That's how easy it is. But people don't want to drive 60 miles an hour, they want to drive 75 and 80, and unfortunately that's what kills us. Okay? Now we're going to move into intermediate hypermiling techniques. Again, hypermiling is all about accountability. Every time you turn the key, we want to see results. And because we have our scan gauges or we have our fuel consumption displays that are built in many cars today, we can tell from the time we turned that key to the time we arrived at point A or point B or through the whole day what our fuel economy was. I'm going to show you some techniques that we can use to move that ahead. FAST. That's when you're stopped, turn off the engine. It's called a forced auto stop. The name was, I coined that term there because what it is Honda hybrids have what they call auto stop. When you come to a stop, the engine shuts off. Well, in a non-hybrid, we have to force this. You don't do it all the time, but I'll give you an example of a situation where you might want to consider this. There's an anti-idling campaign going on through the Georgia highway, like a DOT for Georgia. It's sponsored by UPS. And what they're doing is teaching young kids to promote non-idling while the parents are waiting to pick up kids or from the bus stop or whatever. And they're even trying to get the bus drivers to shut their vehicles down because the emissions, nothing to do with fuel economy, just because of the emissions that are, they're being put out for no reason. If you're not moving, if you're just sitting there, why is the motor running? And that's one of the advantages of hybrids is they do shut down automatically, whereas our normal cars, if you're sitting for a while, shut it down. Drive with load. This means drive like a roller coaster. And I want to give this example. I wish I had pictures for this, but there's really no way I can describe this in pictures except take you out on a clinic. We have plenty of overpasses here in Illinois, and we're going down the interstate at 55 or 60 miles an hour. There's light traffic. Well, instead of leaving your cruise control on and staying at that 55 or 60 miles an hour, what you want to do is let your speed droop a little bit. And this is the way truck drivers, the good truck drivers, drive. What they do is they leave their accelerator pedal locked and they don't move it. And as you climb, you'll notice that your speed goes, let's say you're going 57, you'll go to 56, 55, 54, 53. By the time you're at the top of the overpass, you might be going 52, 53 miles an hour. Do not change your accelerator pedal. Leave it the exact same place, and on the downhill, you go 53, 54, 55, 56, and by the time you get to the bottom of that hill on the back side of the overpass, you're going the same speed as when you approached it. And the main thing here is that your engine didn't even know it climbed, it didn't know it fell off, it just knows it was going down the highway, just nice and easy, gentle cruise-like control, and it saves a lot of fuel. Unfortunately, again, most people, they set their cruise, and I'm not saying cruise is bad in all cases, but in many cases, especially with these overpasses we have in Illinois, the motor revs up and then it goes into fuel cut and then it kicks back in and transmission's downshifting, all just because you climbed the overpass and went down the backside. If you just lock your foot on the accelerator pedal, don't move it, let it bleed off a little bit and let it pick back up on the downside. That's how that works. Driving without brakes or driving with buffers. This is a pretty simple one. If you had to drive somewhere and you knew that your vehicle had a problem with its brakes and you had to go, how would you change your driving habits? This one's easy because everybody's going to say, I would barely touch the accelerator and I would leave a lot of room in front of me to make sure that when I'm coasting down to a stop, I have plenty of room. That's all this is leave plenty of room in front of you and don't touch the brakes if you don't have to. If you put yourself in the mindset that my vehicle is problematic, even though it's not, you'll never touch those brakes. And in fact, unfortunately tonight there was too much traffic, but I did a presentation for the McDonald's Corporation, and traveling from the Wisconsin border down to Oak Brook, I touched my brakes 7 times last summer. This kind of gives you an example as how easy you can drive. Not only is it going to save you fuel, but my Accord has 105,000 miles on it. I don't think I'll ever put a brake job on it. It'll go to the junkyard before brakes ever go bad in it. That's just, it's another fuel savings and savings in your, go ahead.
I've been driving like that for the last 37 years.
God bless you.
2 or 3 years without changing my brakes.
Yeah, and it works.
You know what, I want to tell everybody, don't be upset about the people behind you. If they honk at you, you give them a nice smile and you wave. I coast to the stop signs. It's like, I can't believe that we don't all, I just get so upset. I try to teach, I have 3 adult children, and when they were learning how to drive, you know, I would sit on the passenger side, and I would say, coast, 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 take your foot off the gas, just coast. If you just coast to the stop signs instead of slamming on your brakes, you wouldn't believe, you're going to save so much money on brakes, it's not even funny. And you still have control of your car because you're going to keep your foot over the brake pedal. I've driven like that for the last 37 years.
Thank you, too. I'll give you a follow-up on that as well. When I was in Carefree, Arizona for the Honda Insight 2 2010 Honda Insight launch last month, and I was with Car and Driver, Road and Track, Motor Trend, all these, foot in the floor type drivers, and I was there to train them. And, these guys are not even used to getting EPA. They're usually about 15 to 20% below EPA in their testing. On average, and there was 50 drivers from every major magazine and news outlet in the country, we brought them up to 65 miles per gallon on a vehicle rated at 41 miles per gallon. And that includes the lead foot. They didn't like it at first, but I, keep working on them, and then they found out that, hey, this is really easy to do. Just do it, okay? Face-out parking. This one is really easy, but unfortunately not too many people use it. When you come to a parking lot in the Jewel or Walgreens or whatever, and you're parking in the back, and I recommend parking in the back, there's always two parking places. There's one that you can pull in, and there's one you can pull through. You're one way or the other. But if somebody pulls in front of you, if you only pull halfway through and somebody pulls in front of you, you have to get out of there, start the car, put it in reverse, back up, stop, put it in drive, go forward, and then you're also heading back into the store, which is not an area you want to go up towards the doors. You pull through to the second parking space, and that way when you turn the key, you only go forward. There's a safety advantage to this as well. The safety advantage is you can see forward a lot easier than you can see back. And think of how many children in this country have been run over without even knowing that they were there. We just didn't know because we're pulling back. If there's a spot to go pulling forward, there, by all means take it. Unfortunately, this parking lot out here, you guys all took my spot, so I couldn't go through. I'll wait till you clear. Okay? Potential parking. And now this one it's intuitive. It should make common sense, but unless it's told you, unless you look for it, you're like, well, what does this mean? The Gurney Mills, and I'm sure some of you have been up to Gurney Mills, whenever I go to the movie theater there is a probably 20 to 25 foot elevation difference between the high point of the parking lot and the bottom of the parking lot. What I do is when I go in there with the kids or with my wife, we always coast in and then we park at the high point facing down the hill. When I take off, I don't even start my key. I don't even turn the key. I just start rolling down the hill until I'm on the bottom, then I start the car. But by doing that, you're not using your brakes to slow down when you come to a stop. And when you accelerate away, you've got this long 25-foot. You've already paid the gas to get up the 25-foot hill, so why not pay the gas to get down it? That's how it works. If you can park at a high point, you coast into the high point and stop, and then when you take off, you're heading downhill again. It's that easy. 3 lights out or anticipatory focus. Now this one works very well for, I used to live in Wheeling. It works well for Gurney. It works well for downtown Chicago. It doesn't matter where, except for New York City. It doesn't work so well because of the way the lights are timed. But all you have to do is instead of driving within 3 or 4 car lengths ahead of you or behind you or to the side, you start thinking about, I've got 3 lights ahead. How are those lights going to affect my driving in 30 seconds or a minute from now? If you're out on the interstate and you see tall trucks on the overpass and they're slowed down, or you see brake lights and they're maybe a 3/4 mile ahead, you're going to be there in 45 seconds. What should I be doing now to anticipate or drive so I know what I'm going to be doing in 45 seconds when I arrive to that point? If you see stuff that's going to impede your progress, take action 45 seconds before you get there so that you can get through that without having to touch your brakes or without having to accelerate through it. It's just a way of becoming a safer driver. And by all means, you're going to get great fuel economy by doing this. And you're going to find out that all those guys racing around you and racing up to the lights, they're going to help you. And we're going to show a little technique in that in just a minute. Oops, I'll go through the rest of them. Rabbit timing, that's the one I wanted to. This is a great one. And I named it rabbit timing because we've all been there. We're sitting at a light, somebody next to us, light turns green, and they race off like, what are they doing? They're going to win the race to the next red light. Wave the flag, you won. What they did for you, however, is they tripped the sensor in the pavement. It's going to turn that light green before you get there. That's how you use a rabbit. You can't stop them from burning fuel. You just can't do it. But don't burn fuel along with them. Let them burn the fuel, and then you'll come up right along with them, and the light's green, and they'll do it again. And they'll just go and go and go. And I'll give you an example of this. I was with WTMJ in Milwaukee on a clinic. And there was a red Jeep that we were pacing, and he was rabbiting every single light. And this was north side of Milwaukee. Lights about every 3 blocks. For 5 miles, this red Jeep was doing this. At every light, he'd tear off. We'd get through 2. On the 3rd one, he'd get caught. I was about 2 blocks behind. Catch right up to him, and he'd tear off again. Make it through 2 lights. On the 3rd one, he'd trip it. He'd go to red, stop, trip it, go to green. 5 miles. They finished that segment up, and I was right next to him as I pulled into our turning space. This guy, he stopped probably 20 times, and I didn't stop once. Let the rabbits run. You know, it's as easy as that. Alternate routes. Now, here in Mount Prospect and Wheeling, there's always an alternate route to get from point A to point B. Start thinking of them in your head. And somebody once, they criticized me for this. They said, why would you travel through a business park at 20 miles an hour instead of taking the end route in 83 and 45? Because it's quicker and it saves fuel, that's why. Less traffic, less chance of an incident, less chance of an accident, the whole thing. I'm not saying that there's always an alternate route for you to take, but there are usually alternate routes, and we've all taken them. When we hear the radio, you know, 4583 is jammed, we'll take 21 or whatever to get around that situation. Think of how you can get from point A to point B without having to take a main arterial with 14 lights and traffic and mall traffic. Is there a business park that I can drive through? Is there a way to, at this point of time, at this time of day, would it be best to take another route to get there? For example, in Gurnee, near where I live, I can travel from one side of Gurnee to the other in 3 different directions to get the same location, the post office there. And by cutting through some business parks, I get there faster, even though it's all slower, and my fuel economy is doubled. And sometimes I can, in the Ford Ranger, I can get over 80 miles per gallon by taking this business park route than in taking the other 2 routes, which I'm guaranteed to get 20 to 25. It's that simple. Start thinking of them before you turn the key, and start looking for them. There's guys that take this, you know, to another level. They actually get out Google Maps and start doing all this on how can I get from point A to point B, and that's fine. But just consider an alternate route when they're available. Okay? Smart braking. Now this one is not intuitive, but there's 3 nuances to smart braking. Let's say you're going down and you know that there's a red light up there and you're going to get caught. If you're going 30 miles an hour and you're going to maintain 30 miles per hour all the way to that light and hit your brakes and stop at that light, that's a lot of fuel wasted because you're going to stop. What happens if you were maybe 1/3 of a mile back and you saw the light turn red and you know it's on a timer or there's some rabbits up there that... What happens if I slowed from 30 down to 20, 1/3 of a mile back, and I traveled 20, maybe 15 miles per hour? Then the light turns green and I go. Fuel economy is always better at speed than it is from 0. Accelerating anything, including a Prius or a Honda Civic Hybrid, from 0 miles per hour up to whatever speed is needed, there's a lot of fuel and a lot of energy burned. If you don't have to stop, don't. So that's one thing that we use is smart braking. If you see a light that's changed or something impeding you up there, brake before you get there and then slow down, but maintain your speed, whatever it is. Again, this is a judgment call, and sometimes, you know, you get caught and say, well, I slowed down when I didn't have to. But 9 times out of 10, you're going to catch the light, or the traffic impediment's going to clear, or people walking across the walkway, they're going to clear. And by the time you get there, you're still moving versus the other guy that's sitting there waiting for them to clear. Okay? Incline, and when I talk about incline smart braking, I'm talking about you're coming up to a stop sign or a stop light. There's traffic in front of you, and there's nothing you can do, but you're climbing a hill. What you want to do is get, you know, within 1/4 of a car length to them. You don't have to be on their bumper. But what this does is it gets you up the hill just a little bit further before you have to accelerate. Now, we're only talking 1/2 a car length or maybe a car length of acceleration going up that hill. But every single little fraction of an ounce adds to your fuel economy, and we're going to show you some numbers here in just a minute. Whenever you're on an incline, pull up closer to the guy in front of you. On the other hand, on any descent, let's say there's a traffic light down in the bottom of a hill, don't go down all the way. Stay 2 car lengths behind. And even if people decide to cut in, don't let them, because they're only going to burn fuel doing that. What you want to do is you already burned the fuel to get up the hill. Why not use some of the advantage of that potential to give you some kinetic energy going down? It's relatively simple. Just hold back a car and a half length instead of being right on their bumper. Back off a little bit and stop up on top with the engine off, waiting for the light to turn green. And then when it's time, you see the light turn yellow for the crosswalk, start your car, start coasting down, and you're going to be surprised at how easy and your car accelerates. It just will help you by going down the hill. And then we talked about smart braking is brake early before you actually get to the impediment. Now we went through some basic and intermediate hypermiling techniques. And again, we went from $1.99 that we're paying, we went to $1.55 just using basics. We're down to $1.30 a gallon using these basic techniques. These aren't really advanced at all. They're just common sense, basically. Now imagine when it's $4 a gallon and now you're paying $2.30 to drive the same distance. That's what this is. Plus, you're saving a tremendous amount of fuel every time you employ these techniques. Now these are advanced hypermiling techniques. These techniques I don't recommend to anybody unless they're in a hybrid or they've had a clinic or they practice these out on open and desolate roadways. When I perform clinics at my home, I can head north and get on roadways that have absolutely nobody on them. So when I have journalists come along for a ride, what I do is I take them, I put them in, and we head north into the areas where there's nobody around, and I can run through the basics, the intermediates, and the advanced, which is what we're going to describe here. Moving fast. Okay, we're going to call it a forced auto stop, but we're moving. For example, when I see a light that's a half mile ahead and I'm going 45 miles per hour, I might put my transmission in neutral. I'll turn the key off, but I'll turn the key forward back to ignition too, so I get all my airbags and anti-lock brakes and everything. And I'll coast all the way there, not burning any fuel. If you're in a hybrid, you can just let off and feather the pedal, and it will go into that mode as well. Okay? Again, a very advanced technique. Positives, you save a ton of fuel. In fact, you're turning your non-hybrid into a hybrid automobile when you do this. However, the negatives are you do have power steering with electric power steering vehicles. With non-electric power steering vehicles, which is most vehicles on the road, it will get a little stiff. However, at speed, you can turn, I can turn an SUV with one finger at 50 miles an hour. At 10 miles per hour, though, I'm struggling. Okay? Power brakes, that's one we have to worry about. There's a little vacuum chamber inside the vehicle that provides power brake system. And if you pump into that brake 3 or 4 times, you lose that power brake. Okay? That's very important that you have power brakes. So again, I'm laying out the caveats. This is an advanced technique. You don't go for this one first. It's just one that we use to really punch up our numbers. And you can use it very safely in traffic if you know what you're doing, but you have to be very careful with it too. Pulse and glide. Pulse and glide was a technique, I think it was invented in the 30s. Nobody's really sure where it came from, but we do know of some mobile fuel economy challenges back in the 30s where they were using this technique. Back then, old carburetors, 2-ton bombs. They'd shave off the tires and they'd throw out the radiators and tear out the seats and everything to get high fuel economy. But what they were doing, they're accelerating from about 5 miles per hour up to 50 miles per hour, throw it in neutral, turn the key off, and then glide down to 5 miles per hour. And they do this again and again. 1930s, 1940 vehicles were getting 60 plus miles per gallon doing this when the average guy was getting 15 in his. It's a really cool technique, and unfortunately you can take advantage of this in hybrids. In a non-hybrid it's a little tougher because you have to use some advanced techniques to get into this glide mode where the engine's off and you're gliding away, and then the pulse mode and how that works. But you also have to worry about how it works in traffic. I see I have one sleeper over here. High-speed pulse and glide. The pulse and glide does work, and it will triple your fuel economy over the EPA, and you're going to see some numbers here in just a minute to discover that. The high speed you can do on the highway. I'm going to have to wake them up. Oh, I'm not that exciting tonight. High-speed pulse and glide, especially in a hybrid, it's easy to do, but in a non-hybrid, again, you have to use some advanced techniques. But you can work this in traffic, and you don't have to go from 5 to 50. You can go from 50 to 60, or you can go from 48 to 56. It works in a multitude of speeds, but you have to work with traffic. You can't just go down to 5 miles per hour on the interstate. You have to work with traffic and be very careful and cautious of what's coming up from behind, what's up ahead, what's on the side. Drafting. This is not NASCAR, and I get accused of this all the time, and I'm like, come for a ride and we'll see how you double your fuel economy without any NASCAR. NASCAR is a way to get hurt, and we don't implement close-in drafting. We don't promote it. I just want to make sure everybody knows that's not what you want to be doing out there because you're going to get hurt, okay? But there's 3 different type of drafts that we've all been in them. We just don't know what they are. We don't know what they do for us because we don't have a fuel consumption displayed to us. A distant draft. If you drive down the interstate 294, 94 at any time, on any time of the day, any time of the night, you're going to see vehicles within 1.5 seconds of one another. Now, the common rule is 2 seconds, and 2 seconds plus. In fact, the further back, I'd like to see people 3 or more seconds back, and a lot of truck drivers are trained to that. But at 1.5 seconds back, if you pull in behind a big rig in front of you, you're going to see a little pop-up on your fuel consumption display. I said, oh man, I'm like, 50 yards behind this guy, yet here it is. It's really helping me. These two are the big ones, though. A surf draft. What a surf draft is and I like to use it for a safety technique. You'll have the big rig in the middle lane going down 294. What I like to do is block the right lane behind him and in the other lane. I'm not following him like this. I'm actually in the right-hand lane behind him, and I'm not in his lane. So I have this whole space in front of me, and I like to block this off. Not only is his wake, and you can see this on a dusty day, you'll see this big wake coming off these trucks, but I like to be behind him and off the back corner. I am completely safe. He can move side to side, and I don't have to worry about traffic in front of him because I blocked the people off. Not only am I gaining fuel economy because I'm sitting think of a dolphin on a bow wake of a ship. They're just riding that wake because it's a free ride. Well, that's kind of like what I'm doing in a surf draft, okay? You don't want to be there forever, and if the guy slows down or does something crazy, you just back off and let him do whatever he's going to do. If he's going to pull over, if he's going to speed up, slow down, that's okay. Just be aware that at any time he can pull over, and that's fine because you're not alongside of him, you're behind him, okay? And then the cool one, this one works for us, especially in Chicago, is traffic side draft. As you're sitting in the right-hand lane going 52 miles per hour, and that's me, I'll be in what's called a ridge ride. I'll describe ridge ride in a minute, but all these cars pass me by in the middle, the left, the far left, far left lanes. They're creating a wake across the entire roadway. And I get the benefit of all these people that want to burn all that fuel. Well, I can't stop all of them, but I'm going to take advantage of it, and I'm just going to sit in my right-hand lane, but just underneath the speed limit, not bothering anybody, nobody's bothering me, and they're going to give me a push. Every time they create that big wake across the entire roadway, they help me out a little bit. Okay? Using all the techniques, and I'll give you an example. My Honda Accord is rated at 24 miles per gallon. Its lifetime over 100,000 miles is 48. While everybody else has been paying $2 for gas or $4 for gas for that car, driving a Honda Accord for 100,000 miles, I've been paying $1. Just because I employ all the techniques in a safe manner to not only reduce my fuel consumption, but to reduce my CO2 output, to reduce our geopolitical tensions. And I'm an environmentalist on the side as well, and I think it's a good thing for everybody to consider that. Okay. Now these are the results. And I want to show you some results in some of the stuff that I've been in, and some of these have already been passed. That upper left number there, it's 150 miles per gallon over a 20-mile course. I didn't know this was going to happen, but I was driving a friend's Honda Insight in a challenge up in Madison, Wisconsin, and nobody had ever gotten one of these vehicles over 130 before. Well, fortunately, we can see this in liters per 100 kilometers as well, and I had to swap to that. But I got 180 miles per gallon in this vehicle in a challenge. First time that was ever done, and I was using some advanced techniques through Madison, Wisconsin. Full of traffic, full of lights, the whole thing. And everybody was like, oh, what's this? So that's when I decided I'm going to take this to a full-time job, that number right there. This one, I was driving a Honda Civic diesel. Honeywell brought that over from Europe. Now, we can't get that vehicle, but I wanted to see, since it was here and they allowed me to take it out for a review, I got a chance to drive it. And what that's showing, 1.7 liters per 100 kilometers, is 138 miles per gallon in a vehicle that's rated at about 40 miles per gallon. Again, it can be done in anything, and this was just a diesel. This one here, a friend let me borrow his Honda Civic Hybrid for a few days, and I just wanted to see what it was like in a high-speed, competitive level pulse and glide. It went over 100 miles per gallon. This one, back in 2005, I was driving a Prius with some friends, and we did what we call the Prius Marathon attempt, and it was along the Ohio River in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We hit 1,397 miles on a single tank of fuel at 110 miles per gallon. This is a Toyota Prius. This was right along lights and hills and 30 mile per hour roadways and 50 mile per hour roadways, and it worked out really well. But this one is I'm especially proud of. This has been beaten at the World Fuel Economy Championships, but a friend of mine, Gerdes from Jupiter, Florida, that's 70.3 miles per gallon on a round trip he took to a local store and back in his Ford Escape Hybrid. This thing was rated at 31 miles per gallon. Just going back to the store and back, he got 70.3 miles per gallon. It's pretty incredible what can be accomplished when you use the techniques. And in a hybrid especially, they're easy because half of the techniques are built in. Now let's discuss a few things about the vehicle types. I've showed you, how the EPA tests were conducted, what the fuel economy rating of your vehicle is, and you can all find at fueleconomy.gov. You can look up your vehicle for the year and the make and model that you have, and it'll show you what your vehicle is rated. If you can beat that from now on, you're doing great. Okay? I've showed you the basics, the intermediates, and the advanced techniques. Now let's talk a little bit about vehicles. The reason why I promote hybrids and high fuel economy is because 9/11 changed the way that I drive. It changed the way that I think. 9/11 was my Alamo, if you want to call it that. It's time to make a change, and we can all do this. And I've done this for so many journalists and so many media outlets that when they see it, they can't believe it, or they don't believe it, and then they get shown, and then they do it themselves, and it's like, I didn't know it was that easy. Hybrids, why do I promote them? Because they do some of this hypermiling techniques. It's built in, and two, they're already rated really high, and taking them to another level, you can really make a nice improvement. Andrew Grant is a taxi driver in Vancouver, Canada. In 2 years, he put over 200,000 miles on that taxi. It's a Toyota Prius, and everybody's like, well, it's hybrid. It's not going to last long. You have to replace batteries. No, you don't have to replace batteries. This thing goes and goes and goes and goes. I'm going to show you in the next slide, one of the individuals that have taken it even further than that. In late 2003, Toyota took his first generation Prius because they wanted it, and they gave him a brand new 2004. Said, we just want to take a look. Battery cap was over 92%, still ready to go. He could drove it for another 300,000 miles. It wouldn't have hurt it. And now this is an old slide, and he's over 200,000 miles on that 2004 now. Okay? There is no battery failures. Hybrids are some of the most reliable vehicles on the roadway, and the reason why is because electric motors, they don't have all of the mechanical friction components that a standard internal combustion engine has in them. And when that vehicle's shut down or in a mode that that mechanical part isn't being used, it's not wearing and tearing like our normal standard vehicles. Braking is another example. Because they have regenerative braking, very rarely do you ever touch the brakes hard enough to use them. We know guys that have their discs rust before they have to replace them from anything with pads. Okay. This is a friend of mine from Massachusetts. He drove this for 349,500 miles. The only thing he did was change oil in it, and he pressed the tires up. But unfortunately, last January, this vehicle got T-boned at an intersection, so it's now gone. He's now driving a 2005 Toyota Prius. It's got over 150,000 on it. He's like a courier. That's why he's putting all the miles he does on it. However, it just goes to show you that these vehicles are completely reliable. And he's also a storm chaser. So anytime he can do a courier up there, and he had that vehicle all over the continent basically. But it just gives you an example that hybrid vehicles last. In fact, in some cases they'll last longer than your normal vehicle, just because they're built for the longevity purpose and to make sure that that battery pack is protected at all times for many, many miles. Hypermiling, it's your choice. You don't have to do it. You don't have to buy into all of it. Just beat the EPA on your vehicle and you're doing well. However, consider in your next vehicle, make sure that you buy one that's very fuel efficient, because $4 of gas could be here, $8 of gas could be here, $15 gas could be here, no gas could be here. At that point in time, you're going to hypermile like crazy, or you're going to wish that you bought a very fuel efficient vehicle with that, okay?